I wasn't supposed to be home that evening. And if I had arrived just 30 minutes later, I don't think my wife would have survived. I wish I was exaggerating. But real life doesn't warn you before it breaks. It just flips. And everything you thought was stable suddenly isn't. Looking back, there were signs. Small ones. The kind you ignore because they don't make sense at the time. But that day, something felt off long before I reached my street. I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. No reason. No explanation. Just a feeling. After 20 years of marriage, you start noticing things that logic can't explain. It's not about proof. It's instinct. Like when silence feels louder than noise. My trip had ended early. Last-minute cancellation. Some corporate issue, meeting scrapped overnight. So I took the first flight back. Didn't tell anyone. Not even her. I wanted to surprise her. Pick up dinner. Sit together. Maybe fix what had been quietly drifting between us. Funny how your last normal thought can feel so hopeful. Right before everything collapses. As I turned into my driveway, the first thing I noticed was a car that shouldn't have been there. My daughter's. Sarah. 24. Lives 2 cities away. And she never visits without calling first. Never. I sat there for a moment. Engine still running. Staring at that car like it was going to explain itself. It didn't. So I stepped out. Walked toward the house. And the second I opened the door, something inside me dropped. The house was quiet. But not peaceful quiet. This was different. Heavy. Like the air itself was holding onto something. I took a few steps in. And then I saw them. Sarah. And her boyfriend, Adam. Sitting side by side. Too still. Too quiet. Not watching TV. Not talking. Just sitting there. Waiting. Like people who already knew something I didn't. Sarah looked up at me. And for a second, I expected surprise. Confusion. Something. But there was nothing. No reaction. Just a slow breath. And eyes that looked ready. That's when my chest tightened. Because I was supposed to be miles away. And she didn't even question why I was standing there. "Hey," I said. My voice sounded normal. But inside, everything was shifting. "What's going on?" Adam looked at Sarah. Sarah looked down. That tiny exchange? That told me more than words ever could. "We were about to call you," she said. I stared at her. "Were you?" She hesitated. Just for a second. But that second was enough. "Mom's not feeling well," she added quickly. "She's at Green Valley Hospital." And just like that, everything else stopped mattering. I don't even remember leaving the house. Or grabbing my keys. Or locking the door. But I remember the drive. Too fast. Too reckless. And one thought repeating in my head over and over again. Why weren't they surprised? It didn't make sense. Nothing about it did. Not the car. Not their behavior. Not the way they looked at me. And definitely not the timing. By the time I reached the hospital, that question had already started turning into something else. Something darker. Something I didn't want to think about, but couldn't ignore. Because deep down, I knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't sudden. Something had already been happening. Something I had completely missed. And I was about to walk straight into it. Without any idea how bad it really was. The doctor didn't rush. And somehow, that made everything worse. Because when people rush, it means something just happened. But when they move slowly, it usually means they already know. And they're deciding how much to tell you. Mr. Hayes. I turned. A woman in her mid-40s stood in front of me. Calm. Controlled. Too controlled. I'm Dr. Collins, she said. Your wife was admitted earlier today. The way she said it. Careful, measured. Made my chest tighten. What happened? I asked. Simple question. But the answer didn't come quickly. She arrived disoriented, the doctor said. Severe weakness, unstable vitals, and signs of prolonged physical stress. Stress? I repeated. That didn't make sense. My wife wasn't the type to just collapse. She was strong. Always had been. We're still evaluating, Dr. Collins continued, but there's something you should be aware of. That pause. That slight hesitation. It hit harder than anything she'd said so far. This condition doesn't appear to be sudden. Everything inside me slowed down. What do you mean? She held eye contact. It suggests a gradual decline, possibly over several weeks. Weeks. Not hours. Not days. Weeks. And suddenly, my mind started connecting things I hadn't even noticed before. The headache she brushed off. The fatigue. The way she stopped finishing her meals. Things I had ignored. Things I should have questioned. But I didn't. Because nothing ever felt serious enough. Until now. Is it illness? I asked. I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Dr. Collins exhaled quietly. We can't confirm yet, she said, but there are indicators that suggest external influence. I stared at her. External. She didn't say the word. But she didn't need to. And that silence? That's where everything changed. Because now, this wasn't about health anymore. This was about intent. I stepped into the room. And for a moment, I didn't recognize her. Not fully. Same face. Same features. But something was missing. Energy. Presence. It was like someone had slowly dimmed her, piece by piece. Machines hummed quietly around her. Monitors blinking. And full line running into her arm. Her skin looked pale. Not sick pale. But drained. like something had been taken from her. Slowly. Over time. I moved closer. Sat beside her. Took her hand. And it felt lighter than it should. "I'm here," I said softly. But I wasn't just saying it for her. I was saying it for myself too. Because something inside me had shifted. Something cold. Focused. Uncomfortable. And I didn't like it. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. I stepped back into the hallway. And they were still there. Sarah. Adam. Standing together. Too calm. Too normal. Like this was just another situation. "Dad," Sarah said, stepping forward, "we need to explain." I raised my hand. Not aggressively. Just enough. And she stopped. Immediately. That alone told me something. "Not yet," I said. My voice was steady. Even though nothing inside me was. Because now, I was watching them differently. Not as family. Not as people I trusted. But as variables. And they didn't notice the shift. Not yet. I pulled out my phone. And did something I hadn't planned. Something instinctive. I started checking. Bank activity. Shared accounts. Recent transactions. At first. Nothing unusual. Then. A pattern. Small withdrawals. Nothing big enough to raise alarms. But consistent. Too consistent. Every few days. Same timing. Same amount range. My grip tightened around the phone. And that's when I did something else. Something they definitely didn't expect. I locked everything. Accounts. Access. Every connection tied to my name. Gone. Instantly. I didn't look up right away. But I didn't need to. Because a few seconds later, I heard it. A sharp inhale. Barely noticeable. But it was there. I looked up. Sarah was staring at her phone. Confused. Then worried. Adam reached for his. Tapped. Frowned. And then, they both looked at me. And for the first time since I walked in, they didn't look prepared anymore. They looked unsettled. "What did you do?" Adam asked. Wrong question. Very wrong question. I tilted my head slightly. Why would I need to do anything? Silence. And in that silence, everything became clearer. Not confirmed. Not proven. But close enough. Because reactions don't lie. People do. But reactions? They're honest. And theirs just told me more than any explanation ever could. "I think," I said slowly, "we'll talk after the tests come back." Sarah opened her mouth to respond. Then stopped. Because she realized something. Something important. Something they both just understood at the same time. I wasn't asking anymore. And whatever control they thought they had was already slipping. But even then, I didn't know the full truth. Not yet. And when it finally came, it wasn't going to feel like anger or rage. It was going to feel empty. Because some betrayals don't break you loudly. They hollow you out first. And I was getting very close to that point. Closer than I realized. The truth didn't come crashing in. It didn't explode. It arrived quietly. And somehow, that made it worse. Because when truth is quiet, it settles deeper. My phone rang the next morning at 6:48. I hadn't slept. Not really. Just sat there replaying everything. Mr. Hayes, the voice said. It was the hospital's internal investigator. And something in his tone told me. This was it. We ran the extended panels, he continued. There's no easy way to say this. My grip tightened. Say it anyway. A pause. Then. We found repeated traces of a sedative compound in your wife's system. I closed my eyes. Not shocked. Not anymore. Just confirmed. It wasn't accidental, he added. The dosage pattern suggests controlled administration over time. Controlled. Over time. Planned. Every word felt heavier than the last. Do you know how? I asked. We believe it was mixed into daily supplements, possibly vitamins. Vitamins. The same ones I had seen sitting on the kitchen counter. The same ones I never questioned. Because why would I? That's when it hit me. Not all danger looks dangerous. Sometimes it looks routine. Normal. Safe. Who had access? I asked quietly. Another pause. Then. Your daughter picked up the refills. Regularly. There it was. Clear. Final. And strangely, I didn't feel anger. Not the explosive kind. Just a slow, empty realization. Because once something like that becomes real, your mind doesn't fight it anymore. It accepts it. And that acceptance? That's the heaviest part. By the time I hung up, I already knew what I was going to do. No shouting. No confrontation. No emotional breakdown. Just truth. And consequences. The evidence came together faster than I expected. Pharmacy logs. Security footage. Purchase history. And one small mistake. That ended everything. Adam had used his own card. For one of the refills. That was enough. One loose thread. And the entire story unraveled. They came to the hospital that afternoon. Flowers in hand. Smiles carefully placed. Like they still believed. This could be managed. That may be. I didn't know yet. Dad, Sarah said softly, how is she? I looked at her. Really looked. And for a second, I saw the little girl she used to be. And that's what made it hurt. Because that version of her would never have done this. She's awake, I said. Relief flashed across her face. Quick. Automatic. But it didn't reach her eyes. And I saw that too. Then I said the one thing that changed everything. I've already spoken to the investigators. Silence. Complete silence. Adam's grip tightened around the flowers. Sarah didn't move. They know about the supplements, I continued. About the purchases. The timing. All of it. Her lips parted slightly. But no words came out. Because deep down, she already knew. It was over. I didn't call the police out of anger, I said. My voice stayed calm. Even. I did it because your mother deserved the truth. That landed. Hard. And for the first time, Sarah's composure cracked. Just a little. Dad, we can explain. I shook my head. Slowly. No, I said. You had weeks to explain. That was it. No yelling. No scene. Just finality. Security arrived within minutes. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just quiet footsteps. And the end of something that would never be repaired. They didn't resist. That's the thing about guilt. It doesn't fight when it's cornered. It just collapses. I didn't watch them leave. I couldn't. Not because I cared what happened next, but because I remembered too much of what came before. 3 months later, my wife walked back into our home. Slower. Stronger. Alive. And still somehow herself. She looked around the kitchen for a moment. Then sighed softly. These cabinets, she said. We really need to fix them. And I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it meant something. It meant she was still here. Still thinking. Still her. And that mattered more than anything else. The case ended quietly. No media. No headlines. Just a courtroom. And a sentence long enough to make a point. But not long enough to undo what was done. And that's the truth about justice. People think it brings closure. It doesn't. It just draws a line. A line between what was and what will never be again. But here's what I learned. The part that stays with you. You can love someone completely and still not know who they've become. You can trust someone for years and still miss the moment they change. But when the truth finally shows up, you only get 2 choices. Face it. Or look away. I didn't look away. And that's the only reason. She's still here. If you think this story was disturbing, the next one goes even further. Because sometimes, the people closest to you aren't just hiding secrets. They're living double lives. And what I found next made this look simple.